afternoon, everyone. I'm Jenny Montgomery. Thank you for joining me today. We're talking personal finance, breast cancer awareness, and a great new read you'll want to add to your book club's reading lists. First up, a recent study from George Washington University shows Americans are still failing at personal finance, and it could not come at a worse time, with the pandemic causing market volatility, job and income losses, and a level of financial stress most Americans haven't experienced since 2008. Do you ever have these thoughts? I will always struggle with money, or only lucky people get rich. You're about to meet a self-made millionaire who has interviewed more than 1,300 of the world's wealthiest people. He says these are the top myths people associate with money. Making money is hard. Money is evil. You need an Ivy League education to become rich. This one sounds familiar. Money will make you happy. And the final big money myth? Middle class means you've reached the American dream. Steve Siebold is the author of the book, How Money Works. He joins me now from Fort Lauderdale Beach in Florida. And Steve, you say that it is time to break some of the misconceptions we all have about money.
Yes, absolutely.
I was interested in some of the myths that you're really specific about after your years of interviews with really, really rich people. And you say that, like, the biggest myth people have is that making money is hard.
Yeah, it's one of the things we're kind of programmed to believe, that this is a very difficult thing to do. And the truth is, in a free market capitalistic system like the United States, it's just about solving problems. So if you get a job, you're solving a problem for an entity or an individual. And if you start a business, you're solving a problem for your customer base. But it really is about solving problems. And the bigger problem you solve, the more money you make.
What about people who are stuck in this mindset of, well, you know, my family didn't have any money, my parents didn't have any money, so it's just this cycle that I'm going to be in too. I'm always going to be living paycheck to paycheck.
Well, I've been interviewing self-made millionaires since 1984, so 36 plus years, over 1,300 personal face-to-face interviews around the country and some internationally. And most of the people I interviewed came from nothing, came from the same background of just the middle class or below middle class, and they built themselves up by solving problems for either large problems or small problems for a large amount of the population. So really anyone can do it.
Problem solvers, there you go with that same concept again. Another thing that you say, you know, forget about this, it's not a requirement. You don't need an Ivy League education to be a millionaire.
Not at all. A lot of Ivy League graduates don't really go anywhere because they come from rich families and they really don't know how to work their way up. Some people do, of course, but you certainly don't need it. Many of the millionaires I've interviewed were high school dropouts, certainly many college dropouts. That's almost the norm for entrepreneurs. So yeah. It's not formal education. It's more about self-education and getting out in the marketplace. And again, you know, solving people's problems. And
another thing that you say is that it's about persistence. You know, if you fail, don't give up. You have to be persistent.
Yeah, I think you have to realize it's a becoming wealthy or at least financially independent is really a marathon. It's not a sprint, as they say. You have to have sustained concentration on what you're doing, even in the face of great obstacles and a great amount of people telling you you can't do it.
So let's talk about obstacles right now. I have 3 kids that are all in their mid-20s, and they're coming out of college, and they're understanding overall the job outlook may not be the best, but I think they're also finding that there are jobs, but they just may not be in the field that they studied.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. There's no question about that. I think the first thing you have to do is learn how, as a young person, learn how money works. It's something that we're not taught in school for whatever reason, not even really in college. Just learn the basics of personal finance. And then if you have to get a job that you don't really want to do, take the job, build up your money, start long-term savings, investing programs, that kind of thing. And then look for your ultimate job or your ultimate business.
You know, the grass is always greener on the other side. We just think, you know, if we had money, we'd be happy.
Yeah, all the studies really indicate that money really doesn't increase happiness. Once you get to about $70,000 a year in the United States, at least in effective income, happiness really doesn't see a big increase. It's buying a lot of things and having bigger homes and fancier cars really doesn't make people happier, again, according to the studies, but it does make your life a lot easier. And I would I would go after financial independence for that reason alone.
What do you think is a great way for people to start understanding about personal finances? Is there anything you recommend?
That's why my co-author and I, Tom Matthews, who's a 40-year veteran of the finance industry, we wrote this book so a 14-year-old kid could understand it, how money works. And so they won't be a victim to the banks and the financial service companies that really have been ripping off the American public for 150 years. Because people are ignorant about money, they don't know the basics. If you learn the basics, and again, any 14-year-old kid can learn, especially in this book. That's why the book is the #1 selling personal finance book in the country right now, because it's so simple and you can read it in an hour, and then you arm yourself against the financial service companies that want you to stay ignorant so they can get richer.
Oh, I love it, and it's such a simple title, How Money Works. How can our viewers get the book?
They can get it on Amazon.com. That's the easiest place.
Absolutely. Thank goodness for Amazon, especially in the pandemic.
They solved the big problem, right? They solved a huge problem for us.
I want to ask you one last thing before we go, Steve. One final myth: middle class means you've reached the American dream.
Yeah, I think middle class means you're going to struggle financially your whole life, as most of our parents did and our grandparents did, even if they were able to reach the middle class, which used to be sort of the American dream. Now I think what you want to look for is financial independence. So you never have to be beholden to anyone else, any entity, any job, any corporation, or anyone else for that matter, for the rest of your life, because you control your finances, which means you control your life.
Steve Siebold, author of How Money Works, thank you so much for enlightening us this morning, for sharing some of these Mythbusters with us. I appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you.
Up next, I'm